Thank you, everyone. Quick show of hands, how many people have played Tetris? Okay. How many people have finished a complete game of the marathon game mode? That's interesting. So a lot of people play Tetris, and it's a game that everyone can relate to, but it's almost impossible to master. And so when you start diving into the brand a little bit in the game, it's interesting to find out that people have loved the game for 30 years, and yet they're still trying to figure out how to master it. So as mentioned, I'm Casey Pelkey. I have a long love affair with Tetris. I joined Nintendo in 1989, and the first game that was exposed to me was Tetris. It was when the Game Boy was introduced, and I actually brought quite a few games home with me. But Tetris was unique because when I brought it home, my mom picked up the Game Boy, and I never saw the Game Boy again. And I knew that Tetris was a special game because of that, because my mom didn't play any other games but Tetris. So in 2007, I was fortunate enough to be asked to join the Tetris company, or the Tetris Online company, which is located in Honolulu, Hawaii. So I moved my family from Seattle to Honolulu, a very difficult task, and have been with the company ever since. So let's talk a little bit about Tetris. The game was created in 1984, and since then it's gone on to be one of the top-selling games of all time. It really got its start with the launch with Game Boy, where it went on to sell 35 million units. Over 425 million mobile games were sold, and it's still growing. And that's important because that's sold games. When we think about freemium and the amount of games that Electronic Arts currently puts out with Tetris, it's staggering numbers. The game's played in more than 185 countries, and it's developed on more than 50 platforms. And I'll talk a little bit about why that's important to the brand, and things for you guys to think about is the exposure across many platforms. So hundreds of millions of Tetris products have been sold to date across all these different platforms, and my company, which is responsible for Tetris Battle on Facebook, one of the top games on Facebook today, recently surpassed 20 billion games played, which is a nice milestone for us. Alexei Pajitnov, he's the father of Tetris. He's very much still involved in the product. When he developed the game in 1984, it was because of his love for the analog version, which was something that he felt like, if I can get it to the digital space, it would be great. So that's when he first created Tetris. And of course, at that time, the Soviet Union said, "Thank you very much, we'll take that." And he wasn't able to really profit off the game, so the legend has that he never actually profited off the game, which is not true. In 1996, with a partnership with Hank Rogers, he actually created the Tetris company. He's done quite well with the brand. He continues to do well. He's a very important part of it. He loves puzzle games, and he loves vodka. He's a great guy. This is Hank Rogers. Hank Rogers he's a pioneer in the video game industry. He's an entrepreneur by heart, but he's also a game designer. He got started in the industry with game design. Hank is one of the most unique people I've met. He is really a great part of, or a big part of the reason why Tetris is such a success. He was asked by Nintendo early on to go and secure the rights. So he actually, on his own, went to Russia, and you can think about this back at the time, found Alexei and talked to him about it, and that's where the relationship really blossomed. They've been great friends ever since, and they had to negotiate the rights to get the product for Nintendo. And many people say that Tetris actually made Nintendo Game Boy, and actually many people say that the Game Boy was made because of, the reverse of that. I would say both are true. Game Boy was a success because of Tetris. Tetris was a success because of the Game Boy. The two worked really well together. But one of the neat things was when Hank first talked to Nintendo, he told them, look, if you want this game to sell to young boys, pack it with Mario. If you want it to sell to everyone, pack it with Tetris. And that really kickstarted the future of Tetris, or the story that we now know. Here's some recent things that have happened. In the video that was shown before the event, Last month, to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Tetris, the game was played on a 437-foot building in Philadelphia, which is now a new world record for an interactive game on the side of the building. The game's been featured in many different places. This year at the Sochi Paralympics in Russia, there was a neat thing where the Tetriminos came down and it said impossible. One of the athletes climbed up and threw an apostrophe and made it I'm possible. It's also been at Burning Man many years. I'm sure many of you might not go to Burning Man, but if you do, you'll find it. It's at the Museum of Modern Art. There's competitions that happen all the time. Fans love Tetris. It's a big part of why the game continues to be successful and continues to appear on new platforms. It's now officially licensed in over 200 different formats. A big part of that is a great partnership with Hasbro. But in the digital space, that's where Tetris always thrives. And so most recently, Ubisoft has been named one of the new licensees. They've announced Tetris Ultimate, which will come on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PS Vita. And my company actually just released 2 versions of Tetris on the new Amazon Fire TV. Both a standard version of Tetris and a new version of Tetris Battle are the game I mentioned for Facebook. So I definitely recommend to check those out. Both are available now. Tetris Ultimate will be available this summer. So really why we're here today, to talk about some of the building blocks that were critical to the success of Tetris. The first, remain true to your original game design. And this is very important for Tetris. The thing that makes your game great for your fans is the things that you have to exploit the most. And the farther you stray from them, the less likely that your fans will enjoy them. So one of the things that the Tetris company did was they created a set of guidelines that the developers can follow to keep the game consistent. I recommend to do the same type of thing with your game if you can. As long as you continue to follow what works for it, you'll be in great shape. But at the same time, it's okay to push it. It's okay to experiment, but the farther you get away, the more caution that you have to apply to it. Be ready to adapt to new markets. Look at every single platform out there. And that's one thing with Tetris. It's available on anything that you can possibly play a video game on. And it's been a real challenge because when it first was introduced to the phone, it was quite successful. Electronic Arts did a great did a great job with the game. But as we went from feature phones to smartphone, it introduced new challenges to the designers. But the Tetris company and Electronic Arts and different folks working with that, they continued to refine the gameplay. And even today, they continue to work on it. It's been a real tough thing for them, but they didn't give up on that. They continued to push the game forward. And it's important to cater to the demographics that work most, the folks that are going to push your game forward. And with Tetris, because it's a skill-based game, there's a unique demographic that we continue to focus on. They've become the evangelists for the game. We're always looking for ways to expand the brand, but we don't want to dismiss the folks that are there. And one of the initiatives that the company is now working on is to figure out how to bring the game down to a younger generation, kind of re-establish or build a new core for the future. That's important for the next 30 years. And then think globally. The problem with global is it's always difficult to monetize globally. But there's tons of players out there. Everyone plays games, and so I highly encourage you to find ways to get your game out to the global market. Take advantage of it. If anything, learn from it. We don't always monetize well in, let's say, Southeast Asia, but we actually learn a lot about making the game better from the users there. And so that's been a real important part of improving the game. Number 3, protect your IP. Clearly, whenever you can start with an original product, that's when you're best off. Today, it's tough to come up with a new original product, but there are fresh ideas out there. When you have a fresh product, register your IP. Get the trademarks, do whatever you can to make it yours. That's really important with protecting your brand in the long run. And monitor the piracy. Keep a very close tab on what other people are doing. It would be dishonest to say Tetris hasn't been copied many times over. So the point here is that the Tetris company is well aware of where counterfeit Tetris products happen. But they've created such a high standard for the way that the Tetris game works, is that they can always feel, rest assured, that the games that are being made out there that are not authentic Tetris do not live up to the standards that the fans of Tetris expect. And that's really why the Tetris brand, as it's been presented as an official brand, has outlasted the competition. Now, with that said, the Tetris company has gone to great lengths to protect the brand. And so I recommend highly to pick your battles wisely. I've learned that from watching them. When they go to war to win. And with that, they've picked some of the best legal team. And legal is not cheap. So it's something where if you have something worth protecting, spend the money to protect it. It's well worth it in the long run. Think beyond video games. So you have this digital game, it's something that you want to now extend into a brand. When Tetris moved outside of the digital realm into the analog realm, creating shirts and different gifts and items, that's really what helped keep it out in the forefront. So it's really important for the longevity. When we think of smart licensing with Tetris, I asked Hank once, Hank, did you ever have any regrets with the brand? And he reminded me of a story where Tetris was doing really well for Nintendo. They came out with a puzzle game, or they saw a puzzle game called Panel de Pawn, and they thought, man, this is a really good puzzle game, but what would really make it sell is just to call it Tetris. And that is not smart licensing. So the problem with that was they took this game, Panel de Pawn, they recreated it, and they called it Tetris Attack. So all the fans of Tetris said, awesome, new Tetris game. Ran out and got it, and were greatly disappointed that this game was nowhere near what they expected for Tetris. So Hank has since said, I will never make that mistake. It's something that I really will focus on in the future and make sure that I don't ruin the integrity of the product. In terms of merchandising, it's always good to find great partners. Tetris company has Hasbro, one of the best partners out there. If you can find good partners to keep your brand out there, then everything works well for all parties involved. So that's been really important. And then as the brand grows, it's okay to leverage the power of nostalgia, but you want to make sure that you don't use it too much. So what we found is that even with the 30th anniversary, we've used the current, or the classic, what we call the 1989 version, the version that appeared on Game Boy. But you can overuse it, and Tetris has evolved in 30 years. So if you jump back, in this case, that would be 25 years, it's not necessarily as good as the games that are available today. But one thing for sure is the sound, the iconic look of it. It brings in that kind of the mom who played it a long time ago, and then we try to introduce it to to the new versions. So you can use it, but avoid the pitfalls. Here are some recent examples. One thing I want to point out is you can see on the right, this is where they've introduced some of the classic Game Boy flavoring. Even down below, where on the version of Tetris that we have now today on Amazon Fire TV, there's a way to skin it. You play with the new rules of Tetris, but it gives you that classic look and feel of the old Game Boy version. And if you ever have the opportunity to get a Google Doodle, do it. I have done lots of consumer acquisition for the Tetris brand. And when we did this 5 years ago, and Google was gracious enough to give us a Google Doodle, we put 1 million users into our application in a couple hours. It was the most amazing user acquisition that I've ever seen. Just make sure that your server guys know that it's coming. Never rest. So the game or the brand that you've created, it can't grow without your constant support. And that's really something that I believe the Tetris company in general has done a terrific job. The team behind it is amazing. They're always looking for ways to improve it. They don't sit on their hands. They don't just let the brand move without, or by itself. It's something that they're constantly trying to evolve and find partners to help it grow. They study successful products. They look at things that work well. And they're not afraid to copy those ideas, and that's legit. Copying games, not a fan of. Copying good ideas, like marketing ideas, fine. Social, all that kind of stuff. Anytime you can improve and perfect on those ideas, highly recommended. Surround your game and brand with a team that's motivated to move the brand forward. And as I mentioned, the team behind the Tetris brand, the company, they're fantastic. They've been there for a long time. They know what to expect, and they really, they do a wonderful job, moving the brand forward. And that's, I think, really critical to why the brand has been around for 30 years. But this is where I end. Treat your game or your brand like it's a family member. And with Tetris, they have a unique story. So the Rogers family is really important part of the Tetris brand. The game, it's your baby, and they truly treat it like it's their baby. And if you don't love it, no one else will. So this is one of my favorite pictures. You have Hank Rogers and his then teenage daughter, Maya Rogers, pushing the brand forward, pushing the game forward. Now, you have Hank and Maya, who has just recently been moved to president and CEO of the company. So Hank is moving the company down the road to allow Maya to take over. And I not only think that Maya is great for the brand and the game of Tetris, she's great for the video game industry. She's good for all of us. She is a wonderful person. I'm actually speaking on her behalf today. She's currently traveling and was unable to be here. But I just have no doubt that the game will be successful moving forward. Over the past 30 years under Hank's leadership, the brand has aged gracefully. And over the next 30 years, I have no doubt Maya will do the same. And so with that's Tetris. Any questions?
Any questions in the room?
Mine's pretty simple. I just want to know if there are any cheat codes you can pass along to the rest of the crowd, Casey.
You know, the best part about Tetris, me as a gamer, is there's no way to cheat it. Pure skill. There are some great items out there, though, so don't be shy to spend on those items.
Just a quick question. Where is the company based? How many people are working on it? Things like that.
Right. So, interestingly enough, the Tetris company is based in Honolulu, Hawaii. Alexei is not based in Honolulu. He actually spends part of his time here in the States and then part of his time in Russia, but he does visit the offices frequently. There are a couple dozen people involved, but the Tetris company, which is managed by, there's many different levels, it's a little confusing, but they're managed by Blue Planet Software. And so they go out and find a bunch of licensees. So I'm actually with one of the licensees, the Tetris Online company. Electronic Arts is a licensee, Hasbro is a licensee. And so our teams all add to it. So there's actually many people behind the brand, but as far as the Tetris company itself, it's actually fairly small and nimble.
So more like an IP company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't actually do much development, but they do a lot of quality assurance. The team is very close to the product. We work very closely. Both Hank and Alexei actually review the product. Their team reviews everything that we do to make sure that there's brand consistency and the quality is top notch.
Hi, I'm Randy Engel. I was actually the lead tester on Super Tetris when Spectrum Holobyte was working on that with Hank and all those guys back in 91, 92.
Yeah.
I was also doing a lot of customer support at that time, and we had one lady call from, her husband actually called because she wouldn't stop playing Tetris, and he says, she's on level 17 and it's crashing. And I said, level 17? He says, yeah, she's been to level 18 a lot, but it crashes even worse on level 18. And I said, it's not humanly possible to play past level 11. And he goes, oh, we can't see the pieces on the screen. She's just that good.
Wow.
And she could see each frame updating with the piece that was in, and it memorized in her mind where all the thing was. And so even though she couldn't see on the screen the pieces updating, she knew where in her head that piece that was coming in needed to go in order to be in the right place.
She's a true Tetris master.
I sent her a Tetris t-shirt, and I sent her a certificate signed by Gilman Louie of Spectrum Holobyte saying she beat Tetris. So.
That's amazing. That's awesome to hear. It's funny because there's a game in Japan called Tetris Grandmaster, and at the end, once you get past all of the main stuff, the game disappears, and you have to play it by memory. And you can look on YouTube and find it. And these people are savants. They're amazing.
I'm sure this lady qualified.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.